Tassie has 29 local government areas and hundreds of suburbs scattered all the way from Hobart to Launceston to Devonport. But after 3 days travelling all around Tassie on the ground, I've narrowed it down to a couple of suburbs where I'd actually put my money. And number one might actually surprise you. Look, for those who don't know who I am, I'm Oliver from Insight 2. I've spent over a week driving through Tassie from Hobart to Launceston to the North Coast, visiting open homes, talking to agents, and more importantly, running the numbers on dozens of suburbs and understanding the local demographic and appeal. Now, this isn't theory, this is a recollection of my findings. And here's what we are simply going to cover. My number one pick and the specific streets you should be targeting. Then numbers 2 and 3 with the data that backs them up. Plus, we'll mention honourable mentions and one suburb you should absolutely avoid. Let's get into it. If you're looking at Tassie right now, especially Launceston, you're probably hearing a lot of noise. As much of kids rambling around, just like what's happening right behind me. Some people are calling it finished, some people are deep diving into it, just like the Cataract Gorge, whilst others are saying it's the next hidden gem. But here's the truth, Launceston isn't one market. It's a collection of very different micro markets. And if you don't understand the differences, you'll either overpay or you'll underperform. It's a hilly landscape and the property market is no different. Today, I'm breaking down the 5 inner ring Launceston suburbs using some hard data and observations from my trip down under, and not just opinions. Before I reveal the picks, let me show you how I filtered down these suburbs. I'm looking at 5 key metrics with a median price of under 750k for entry affordability, gross yield of above 4%, days of market under that 40 days, stock on market under 0.5%, showing scarcity, and an owner-occupier rate above 60% for stability. Now, Norwood isn't the cheapest suburb in Launceston. It's not the highest yielding, but it's the most balanced. And that's why it's my number one pick. The median is hovering at that 670 to 680, premium for Launceston, but affordable by mainland standards. The yields are right at that 4% plus or minus. What is exciting here for the data property nerd, watch out. Your stock on market is sitting at just 0.28% and months of inventory at 1.25, both very tight. But you know what? The real kicker, the building approval ratio is only 0.06%. That is basically zero housing in the pipeline. And on top of that, the average hold period is over 11 years. That's pretty long, hey? Sticky owners don't sell often, and that is what creates that real scarcity. This is what I'm gonna call that real textbook scarcity suburb. Low construction to zero, long haul times, and not much new supply coming in. So even if the demand stays lukewarm, it's that supply side that is doing that heavy lifting. What makes Norwood work is quite simple. Number one, established character tree-lined streets, period homes, that pride of ownership, home appeal is definitely evident when walking the streets and driving through. The school catchment, Norwood Primary, just where we are sitting right now, and we're literally close to Launceston Grammar. The proximity to the CBD, it literally took us a 5-minute drive into walkable services of Norwood. Next, the demographics, professional families, retirees, stability in a suburb that is dominated with owners on an 18% ratio to renter to owner-occupier, which is higher than the Launceston average, all within a fantastic socio-demographics ERSAD score of 5. Now, great affordability of 35 years to own, and owner-occupiers are simply not wanting to leave these suburbs, where the hold period is 11.3 years, which is a lot higher than the Launceston average. So the strategy: target 3-bedroom homes on a 600 square metre lot in the older established pockets. Avoid anything built post 2010. You want the character stock that's irreplaceable. Your budget around that 600 to 650 price point for quality. You're holding for 7 years minimum. So who's this suburb good for? That's the exciting thing. Long-term, balanced buy and hold investors. Portfolios that prioritize that low vacancy risk. And simply, let's face it, anyone targeting family-friendly homes with both growth and income potential. What should you be buying? I'd be targeting 3 to 4 bedroom homes on practical blocks. Think livability, flat access, decent parking, low maintenance layouts. Avoid the awkward sites or where design compromises that hurt the appeal for both tenants and future owner-occupiers. Now, let's face it, obviously these are all the pros. The one thing that I want you guys to watch out is if a current soft demand trend tends to persist, you want to be smart in price. Do not overpay for the cosmetic upgrades of the nice to have or the pretty real estate pictures. You want the strong bones to future-proof the appeal. The area north of the Launceston Golf Club to the west of Norwood into Punchbowl has greater density of social housing pockets of about 13%. That's about 27 homes out of 210 homes. Now, 13% might sound scary, but that's why we're going to deep dive and have a look what the type of homes are. Newstead, fucking boring as shit, Coles, plain street, but it's a premium play. Higher entry point at that 80k, slightly lower yield at 3.78%, but look at the days of market. Beautiful 23 days in reducing. Properties are moving fast because obviously demand is strong at the owner-occupier level. What does that mean? Simple, properties here sell faster and the demand trend is strong and improving with days on market at only 23 days, led by the owner-occupier force. That usually supports price stability and reduces the holding risk. So if you need to exit down the track, you're not stuck knowing that you are in a great suburb dominated by owner-occupiers at about 27% renters to owners within a fantastic socio-demographic ERSAD score of 6. Now, let's look at the supply side. This is where things get a little bit exciting. Stock on market is at 0.34% and months of inventory sitting just at above 1 month. Still tight, but not quite as scarce as Norwood. My only problem with this metric is that it has been stable and flatlining and plateauing, not showing any signs of reducing supply at a long-term and short-term trend level. When you couple that with a building approval ratio being about that 0.38%, there is a moderate pipeline coming through, but nothing that is quite alarming just yet. And the hold period, about 9.6 to 10 years, potentially on the upper side, but nothing as strong as 11 to 12 years. So the risk here isn't oversupply today. It's that Newstead is more sensitive to extra listings, like other areas like Norwood or King Meadows. If a bunch of home comes on market at once, pricing could flatten a little bit quicker with larger choice to owner-occupiers. But here's the upside. This suburb sends a strong quality and stable signal. The data shows historically Newstead had shallower drawdowns, meaning values tends to hold up better when the market softens. The vacancy rate is a lot higher at 1.79% than Norwood, but it's still healthy. And the type of tenant you attract in Newstead is typically professional doctors at the nearby hospital, executives, people who pay on time, and particularly stay from a long-term appeal due to job stability in the positions that they're in. The strategy. This is capital preservation plus quality. You're not buying for yield, you're buying for the type of asset that holds value in any market. Target established homes near the golf course or along the Alpine Road corridor. So who should be looking at Newstead? Buyers who want capital preservation with steady growth, those who value that owner-occupier appeal, and simply investors willing to pay a premium for quality stock in a very tight, controlled market. What should you be buying in here? Well-positioned, low-compromise homes. Think good orientation, off-street parking, ideally would always be a premium, functional layouts. This is a suburb where buyers can tend to be selective, so you don't really want to be cutting corners when it comes down to asset selection. Now, a couple of things to be aware if you're looking in Newstead. First, there are some remnants of social housing pockets, particularly around the Birch Avenue and the Tudor Avenue, about 6.2% of stock. Now, it's not ringing alarm bells to me. That's only 16 homes out of 260 homes. It's definitely not a deal breaker, but if you're targeting an owner-occupier resale, which you should always be targeting, or a higher end tenant, it's worth knowing where these clusters are and buying a little bit more selectively out of these pockets if you could. Now, second, the most important one is the flood risk. The North Esk River runs just east of Newstead, and certain lower lying pockets would definitely carry higher flood exposure. The key here is always to check the overlays, especially if the property backs onto reserve or sits on that fringe of a river corridor. Trevallyn is my growth-oriented long-term hold. The yield is at 3.6, one of the lowest of our picks, but here's what you're buying. Let's face it, you cannot replace this view. It's irreplaceable natural amenity. The suburb backs onto Cataract Gorge and is one of Tassie's most spectacular natural assets. And obviously you can't replicate this. They're not making any more suburbs with Gorge frontage on the hilly sides. And the owner-occupier demand here is pretty intense, with the renter to owner-occupier ratio of 26% and a fantastic ERSAD score of 7 out of 10. Now, these are people who specifically want this lifestyle and will pay a premium for it. And the affordability index validates their ability at around 33 years to fully own the home. And that's fantastic when it comes to the affordability metrics. The strategy here, target the blocks, proximity and views. This is where a 10-year hold, where you're betting on scarcity and lifestyle demand driving value. And let's face it, it's not a cash flow play. It's a capital growth play. Now, it's not all glory days. I want you to watch out for the key particular things here. Number one, Trevallyn has slightly more supply in market with a constant balanced supply that is not reducing either long term or short term. It's effectively plateauing. That can cap the price pressure if the demand doesn't keep improving. However, what is exciting on the short-term demand since last year, we can definitely see that it's taken a drastic reduction of days on market from a whopping 100 days at its peak. Let's face it, that's 3 months, to approximately 40 to 32 days, being 1 month. The combo of the higher stock on market plus long-term demand trend reducing effectively means It's a market that is slowly starting to move at the owner-occupier level. I want you also to avoid the overcompromised stock, you know, busy roads, awkward site, poor parking, layout issues on a hill slope that is almost too steep. What to buy now? Owner-occupier grade homes that win on livability. That is the key here, livability. Because these suburbs, the upside is strongest when the owner-occupier demand stays thick and sticky, wanting to stay here. If you want another Tassie option with clear numbers, here's another play to potentially watch. First, Launceston Kings Meadows is a cash flow, potentially value add pocket, and unfortunately just missed the cut. The median price, it's around 660k with about that 4% gross yield and 44 days on market. The strategy here is simple, income focused, but with reno potential to manufacture upside. Tenant demand here is tight. We're talking of super tight low vacancy rates and obviously great rental stability. Right now, supply is extremely tight. Your stock on market is just at 0.17% and there's only about half a month of inventory. That's one of the tightest I've seen in this entire region, and it's severely reduced over the last couple of months at 0.74% with a very sharp incoming declines of homes to market. But on the buyer side, things are moving a little bit slower. So instead of this boom style pricey jump, growth here is likely to take a bit of a more slower ground in my opinion. From a strategy wise, here's who this suburb is best for. If you're income focused investors chasing a stable yield, if you are an entry buyer looking for value, or simply if you're a renovator who want to manufacture equity and not wait around for it, Kings Meadows might be one where you would be putting your money in. So what should you be buying here? Look for homes with clear layout upside, maybe a wall you can knock out, an extra bedroom where you can add, or just simply a cosmetic uplift potential. Ideally closer to the shops, the school, the transport links, or the main strip just right behind me. And one that I want you to particularly watch out for, don't bank on suburb growth alone. The numbers are pointing that you might win here by buying well and adding value. Just like at the poker's machine just inside Kings Meadows Hotel. It's a bit of a gamble, but here's where it gets interesting. And what I want you to pay particular attention to is two key areas you should be watching for. Particularly number one is your future building approval. Now, the pipeline of new builds is actually one of the highest in the set. The building approval ratio is hovering just under 1%, relatively higher in comparison to the other Tassie suburbs, right? It's always relative to make sure that we are comparing it to particular suburbs. So even though it feels scarce today, there's obviously the future supply risk on the horizon. Now, if those approvals turn into actual dwellings, it could potentially dilute that scarcity over time if the demand is not then picking up for housing. Put that reminder in your phone to make sure you keep tabs on that approval pipeline. If new supply floods in faster than the demand can actually absorb it, that's where you'll cap your capital upside. Number two, this is where we get into the car. We look at the social housing pockets down around the south of Carrara, Villa Flora Reserve. There is a little bit of a patchy area of higher social housing. Right around that Techno Park Drive, Edinburgh Street at about 13%, which is not that high, but again, worth a mention. Let's hop into the car. Let's go see what it actually looks like in that pocket. Techno Park Drive. Let's fancy and put 18% to a test, whether it's investor friendly, owner occupier friendly, or car yard shopping trolley friendly. take your pick. What are we seeing? We are seeing Westpac to the left and right. And now we go around the roundabout of Technopark Drive. If this is social housing, I'd be happy to live in one of those houses. And I reckon we might have hit a wrong spot. It's definitely King Meadows. What I'm concluding is it's a nice roundabout, nice homes, not much of burnout on the streets. So it's a go. Generally, you want to stay 10% below. It's just a numbers thing, right? So that's why it's quite important to go out and validate what it actually looks like. Because I'm sure you'd agree with me. If you were living in one of these units down here, I'm sure we'd all have no issues coming down here and calling it home. Even if it's what's happening at night, you should technically see burnout, skid marks on the street. You should see a little bit more graffiti, a little bit more scattered rubbish or loitering around. There's no presence of all of that shit happening here. Or you'd see a lot of these bottles with beautiful cones happening left, right, centre. West Launceston has a median price of about 680, but more interestingly has a buy search index of about 5, which is the highest in Tassie. What this means, potential speculation happening, not fundamentals, is driving interest. When the music stops, these suburbs get hit the hardest. Unless you're doing some serious value add and getting out within the next couple of years, I would personally avoid it. And here are the reasons why. At an incoming supply level, I am personally not seeing a sharp reducing homes at a long-term, medium-term to short-term time frame. Effectively what this does, it plateaus, as you can see on the chart. This is the don't ignore this metric. Historically, this suburb has shown bigger drawdowns, and you can definitely see that in the growth rate cycle. You can still invest here, but you need a better deal, a better asset, and better buffers to really make sure you're buying that resilience in the asset. Now the strategy fit. Who is it best for? Simply put, the investor who can tolerate the ups and downs, also investors that want an opportunistic upside, often through value add selections, layout changes, and positioning and renovation. What to buy? Only A-grade fundamentals. You are not compromising on the asset selection, as it will punish you even harder. Now, a couple of watch outs. Come along. I want to hop in the car and show you what we are having to be cautious of. We are in the heart of West Launceston, sitting just on the outskirts of the CBD, very hilly. A lot of these homes do not have parking, so a lot of off-street parking are what we can see. Very dated homes, a lot of them needing a bit more TLC. Some of them have, gotten the beautiful modern grey palette. Others are still dated to your greens and your yellows and your off-whites. Let's put the research to the test. We are driving into Connaught Crescent, particularly this pocket earmarked, and again I say earmarked from Profile ID, to be a little bit more denser in terms of social housing, or potentially remnant of social housing. What we're seeing here is not a lot of true evidence of a riff-raff type of homes. So what we're looking for is a lot of car stacking, a lot of shopping trolley carts, but can't see any of that. Homes are a little bit more dated, and we're meant to be in a pocket that has about 18% of the homes marked as a social housing home. We can see how a lot of these homes, especially in this corner, is a little bit more tired. Frontage is not quite well maintained. Again, slowly a little bit of a suggestion of some of these homes, but again, as you guys can see, it's not the end of the world. In comparison, take Dallas, Meadows, there's a lot more worse. Hardly any graffitis, signs. But again, very hilly. if you're learning how to drive a manual car, which is quite seldom these days, that is not the place to be learning for you Gen Ys or Gen Zs or Gen As. So yeah, this is it. This is the 18% pocket. Initial reaction, it's a lag in the data. Yes, potentially some of those homes are, government social housing. They do show some elements of them, but at the end of the day, it's not a no-go danger zone. Nothing that's screaming alarm bells of danger zones of what we would particularly stay away from. And that's why sometimes, particularly when it comes to social housing pockets, do not get misflawed by an 18% or a 20%. Because as you can see, that is what it looks like. So there you have it, my top Tassie suburbs. Norwood for balance, Newstead for premium preservation, and Trevallyn for that long-term growth. But also an honourable mention goes to King's Meadows for cash flow, and also a big warning sign on West Launceston. Tassie isn't for everyone, but if you're willing to hold long-term and you pick the right suburb, there's a genuine value here that mainland investors are slowly starting to look into. Now, if you want help finding the right suburb for your strategy in Tassie or anywhere in Australia, you guys know what to do. The link is in the description. Book in a call, we'll go through, we'll eliminate the noise, we'll cut through the noise, and we'll actually find opportunities that are actually making sense for your portfolio. Not because you're seeing the headlines of Tassie, Hobart, Launceston, Melbourne, Victoria pop through. And of course, if you've enjoyed the Tassie trip, if you've enjoyed coming along with me, deep diving into the Cataract Gorge, drop a like, drop a subscribe. It actually means a lot more to us so that we can keep continuing to go into and deep diving into these suburbs to bring it back to you on the YouTube channel. See you on the next one.